Boeing slashes jobs, we discuss the top 5 spaceflight events of 2024. And next week, we go over the 5 worst spaceflight news events of 2024. All coming up on the next Orbital Edge. Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Orbital Edge News, a brand new show for passionate spaceflight fans. I'm your host, Chad, and before we get into the top 5, we do have a couple quick recent developments in space news that we definitely need to go over. The first item up on the chopping block is Boeing slashes jobs here at the Space Coast. So about 26 jobs were slashed from Boeing, and that's going to include about 20 jobs in Titusville, Florida, one at Cape Canaveral, and about 26 positions at the Kennedy Space Center. So that's actually going to create a total of 100 jobs in Florida. Of course, the Space Coast is part of that. Some of these jobs are not all in the same area. Some are off base from the Kennedy Space Center, so we do need to actually cover the entire total here. And of course, this is in light of 2 major issues that happened this year in 2024, most notably the Alaskan Airlines incident where the door blew off, and of course in the spaceflight world, the Starliner. And finally in space news, before we get to the top 5, NASA did drop some bad news for the Artemis moon mission. There was a press conference on Thursday announcing a delay of not only Artemis 3, but Artemis 2. And each mission is going to be delayed another year. So from 2025, Artemis 2 is now going to get bumped up to 2026. And Artemis 3 is going to be bumped up to 2027, which is supposed to include the lunar landing. Most of this is revolving around what happened with the Orion's heat shield. The heat shield came back. They're finally being transparent about it. The heat shield looks horrible. It's all charred away. You can see in the photo right here what it looks like. Now, NASA has decided to keep the same heat shield on here and not completely rebuild it. This is the major part of the delay and why it's going to be 1 year more. Now, the huge contributing factor to this decision, of course, is the recent news of the Orion's heat shield. This came back pretty bad. They have decided to actually not rebuild the heat shield and to ship it back to the Cape, rework what it needs to be done to get this thing going. And without further ado, we're going to roll right into our top 5 spaceflight events of 2024. Coming in at number 5, Polaris Dawn. Now, if you don't know what the Polaris Dawn mission was, this was America's first private spaceflight mission to actually have an EVA, or a spacewalk, performed by an astronaut. And this was performed by astronaut Jarek Isaacman. And of course, he's led and commanded the previous private spaceflight missions by SpaceX, including Inspiration 4. Coming in at number 4, Ariane 6. This mission flew on July 9th, and this was chosen because it was a live flight test of the rocket, a brand new rocket for the European Space Agency. And this was a really cool launch because they not only put live payloads on it, they also ran some other test articles on the flight as well. Of course, this flight wasn't completely flawless if you've seen one of our space pods. We're going to point to that up here. Go ahead and check it out about the Ariane 6 and what happened. Something happened to their second stage, and I think you might want to learn about what happened there. Coming in at number 3, all the private lunar lander missions. Yes, I'm going to kind of combine all these missions kind of in one collective. I feel that a lot of these, deserve their positioning here at number 3. And these landers include, of course, the Slim lander from Japan, the Nova C lander from Intuitive Machines, and they're based out in Texas. And last but not least, the Peregrine lunar lander, which was launched by the inaugural Vulcan ULA rocket. And the Peregrine lander, of course, was what kicked off our Orbital Edge News show on episode 1. So I felt like they should, give the number 3 spot because this did give that the lunar mission boost that it needs for the exploration side of space. So it's great to get something like that going here in 2024. Coming in at number 2, Starship IFT-3 test flight. This test flight occurred on March 15th. Why did we pick it? Because this test flight completed the largest number of milestones of any Starship test flight. And of course, this was that test flight. They gave us that cool fireworks plasma re-entry show. So congratulations on SpaceX on giving us our well-deserved test flight that we all yearned for 2024. And ladies and gentlemen and space cadets, coming in at number 1, the top space flight event of 2024 is the Vulcan launch! Yes, of course. And this happened in January 8th. And why did I pick this? It's an inaugural launch of a huge rocket. United Launch Alliance has been overdue for getting this rocket out on the pad. It replaces the Delta IV medium, and it replaces the Delta IV heavy, sort of. We have a previous episode on that. And, last reason that it's our top pick, it not only kicked off the show, but it was also responsible for item number 3, and that is the Astrobotics private moon lander called the Peregrine lander. Now, of course, that lander didn't have a successful deployment. However, that doesn't stop, the Vulcan from being number 1 here, and it doesn't stop the Peregrine lander from that number 3 spot. So, glad that we got this top 5 out of the way, but stick with us next week. We're going to do the top 5 worst spaceflight news or events of 2024. You don't even want to miss this because we're the only news channel that's going to do the worst, like a top 5 or top 10 worst spaceflight items of the year. No one's going to be doing this, and no one even did it last year. So you definitely want to stick around at next week. We're excited to get this out for you. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, comments from the last show. Stay tuned. Don't go away. And welcome back. We'd like to thank all the subscribers and commenters that have helped make this show engaging. So with that out of the way, we're going to go into our comments. This is from episodes... Actually, we're going to do episode 9 and 10. This comment is from old Acorn on Blue Sky, and he says, NASA is noble, the pursuit of science, understanding, exploration. If used properly, in 500 years, people will be reading about NASA. SpaceX is trying to steal my tax dollars to make money. If remembered at all, it will be like the East India Company or worse. So I'd like to address this head first. This is referring to episode 9, where we talked about Elon Musk being appointed by President-elect Donald Trump to be the head of Department of Government Efficiency. And people are fearing that, and the reason why this comment is here is because people are fearing he's going to take all of taxpayer money and then just try to funnel it to SpaceX, defund everything else in space so that only SpaceX gets taxpayer dollars. And we here at Orbital Edge News are completely against that. We need to make sure that everybody has a fair opportunity, for access to space. Also, spaceflight is to be collaborative and not competitive in that way. There can be competition in space, but that is contextual to whatever industry that you're in. So if you're doing internet satellites, there's competition among other internet satellites. That's good competition. But bad competition is taking the one and only thing, like landing on the moon. That is just a one thing you can do. If SpaceX is trying to prevent NASA from doing that, then we definitely have some serious issues to address, because China's going to beat us to the moon if that's what we're going to do. They're already throwing $66 trillion to try to beat us to the south pole of the moon. Well, we don't want that to happen, so we need to make sure that SpaceX is collaborative with NASA, and NASA gets the funding that they need to do to continue their exploration and their research and development to foster a permanent human presence on the moon and to do it safely. With that comment out of the way, that's going to be it for the comments. I do invite you to stick around for next week as we do the top 5 worst spaceflight news events of 2024. So I will cut this short. There is no orbital trivia answer this week. I do apologize for that, because we're just absolutely in turbo mode this last month of the year, getting content out to you. So we want to make sure we get something at least to you each week. Also, we did do our premiere of After Dark. It's something we're trying out. It's very informal. We just talk randomly about space events. Anything space, astronomy, space flight, just anything on the top of my head. I'll read Reddit. I'll read what's, what are they saying, what kind of conversations we can kind of pick at. I just love to spark, meaningful conversation here at Orbital Edge News. And of course, that helps the audience, engage with us, and which of course gets other people excited about space. So I'm definitely looking forward for 2025 to be a better year than 2024. Not only for the show, I'm not saying, we're definitely improving. I could definitely pick at the show, and next year I'm going to make fun of certain things about this show. I'm going to do it. I'm probably going to do a space flight or a space pod, just absolutely roasting me to say, why did you say that? Or, you could have done this better. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get better. But we're also hoping that the space program gets better too. So 2025 is going to be very interesting. It could either go north or south. We're right in the balance right now. So yeah, I can't wait for 2025 and what it brings to spaceflight. I am going to wrap things up right now. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help share this so the word gets out there. Again, I'm your host, Chad, and I will see you next time.